Welcome back to another episode of Building the Pride. I'm your host, Drew, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how's it going?
Not too bad, Drew. Living the dream. How about you?
I haven't had running water in my house for a week because my pipes are frozen.
Really? I did not know that, man. That sucks.
It's really great. So we had someone come out to look at my house is on a slab. I don't have a foundation. So I have a crawl space instead of a basement. And
Right.
brought someone out to see what the damage was to the pipes. And he got in the crawl space and he looked at the piping for the bathroom, and he was like, whoever built your house didn't carve out a spot for the pipes. They just laid like a trench in the dirt and laid the pipes in the dirt. So we can't.
So that got cold.
They got cold and froze, and we can't assess the damage because the ground is in the way. So now the next
frozen ground, right?
very likely frozen ground.
Jeez.
So the next most likely step is we're going to have someone come in and cut a hole in my floor so that they can lower someone down on top of the pipes to see if we can assess the damage from the top of the pipes. And we have no idea what the damage really is or what it's going to cost to. Now, the thanks, Brent.
That's terrible, man. That sucks.
So the kind of saving grace so far is that I did call my insurance company preemptively, and they said this is an act of God. Like, there's no way around this. Like, you're not in charge of how cold it got. I was in my house with the heat on, running water the whole time.
Right.
No one that I've talked to about this has ever heard of an active house having their pipes freeze.
Right.
So if anybody's listening to me, I just encourage you, if you get a chance, hopefully in summer, just double check your plumbing, and if you find out that someone 70 years ago who built your house, laid your pipes in the ground as opposed to carving out a spot for them. Like, I would at least get them insulated, because it really takes away someone's humanity when they can't cook, bathe, or go to the bathroom in their own home.
Yeah.
So
wow, that sucks. Yeah, can you put like a space heater in that crawl space? Or something to heat it up?
We did for 5 days.
It's still nothing, huh? Holy crap.
It didn't seem to help. The faucet in the kitchen runs. And so we had always heard, like, if your pipes freeze and you have any faucet that is running water, like, leave it on.
Don't turn it off.
Right. So that you can keep the water moving and it won't freeze and hopefully destroy the pipe or whatever. Well, it turns out that whatever this problem is, whatever the drainage thing, I don't know anything about. I'm just not a mechanical person. But, like, whatever the system is that drains water from my faucet or from my sink in my kitchen to the sewer system in the city is not working either, because we have just been flooding the crawl space with that water for like 40 hours.
Yeah.
So,
man,
I haven't.
Sorry to hear about that, buddy. If you need a shower, come on over.
I will probably take you up on that.
Or food or whatever, right? Just swing over. That's rough.
Yeah, it's weird how, like, to Brian's point, like, it's weird how you feel like when you get this stuff back, you feel rich almost.
Yeah, like, ooh, look at amenities.
And it's just just the burden of trying to fix this kind of stuff on it's just me here.
Yeah.
So, like, one income is insufficient for this kind of thing. So,
and that's not something necessarily everybody's inclined, like mechanically inclined or like had the skills to do, right? Even if you did some like regular small scale plumbing, this is bigger than that. So
yeah, there's no YouTube DIY video for for this.
Yeah, that's rough, man.
This is
That's
shaping up to be a pretty major problem. So this just makes,
ugh.
in the last 2 years in my house, I have replaced the furnace, the AC, the water heater, the roof, and now probably my plumbing. So the house will be
It's gonna be like brand
new.
Yeah.
Except
The roof was because like a tree limb or a tree fell on it, right?
That is correct. So, but that tree is dead. I killed it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you didn't have any bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck at all, I think, right?
That sounds pretty close to the truth. So, just bad luck for me.
Oof. Well, it'll turn around. It'll turn around.
House of Theseus.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, well, let's talk some football. Championship weekend was this past weekend. Kansas City played Buffalo. They squeaked by 32-29. Tight game. As always, especially when a team is successful consistently, there's always controversies about refs and all that kind of stuff. But to me, I thought it was I saw the highlights. I didn't watch the whole game. I saw the highlights, and to me, the controversial calls were run-of-the-mill controversy. Like, oh, yep, I could see where someone might think that. How's it going, Joseph? But, I mean, 32-29, tight game. Philadelphia, on the other hand, just walked all over Washington. Washington gave up the ball like we did. I mean, not 5 times. I think it was 3, maybe 4, but it was enough where, well, you don't give a good team like Philadelphia 3-4 extra possessions, right?
No. Yeah, so the story of the playoffs, in my opinion, has been who's turning the ball over. And if you're gonna turn the ball over, you're probably not gonna win. And so I'm looking it up right now just to see like how many turnovers each team had here or what have you. But
and Saquon Barkley was just not able to be stopped either.
Yeah, the guy is ridiculous, and was not healthy. Like had some kind of calf. But yeah, they had 4 turnovers. They had 3 fumbles and an interception thrown. I don't remember the pick, but I do. It's Quinion Mitchell got it when they were quote unquote threatening to kind of ice it. But yeah, to Joseph's point, like the Eagles ran the ball, and Washington looked careless at times. And a lot of that was Philadelphia actually peanut punching the ball out of their hands. One of them was on a kick return, and the guy just hit him straight up, and the ball squirts out, gets kicked, and then there's a scrum. The Eagles come up with all these balls that got put on the ground, and that's why they're able to. 55-23 is just astounding.
Yeah. Especially at that point in the season, right? Like one game from the Super Bowl, you don't have scrubs. You have people that are playing really well at a high level against high level talent and still getting there. Yeah,
and with Kansas City and Buffalo, like Josh Allen has beaten the Chiefs 4 times in the regular season. He has not beaten them in the playoffs, right? So and this has been Kansas City's shtick all year, is that they win really close games. And we talked about this last week with like the controversy or what have you, but like the refs weren't responsible for Dalton Kincaid not coming down with the prayer that Josh Allen threw up. The refs are not responsible for like unblocked pass rushers coming in on Josh Allen. They're just not responsible for those things. And like if the game plan to win Kansas City all these games is that the NFL, which are the owners,
right,
of which Buffalo's owner is one of them, and every team that gets screwed by them is one of them.
Yeah.
They're all colluding to get Patrick Mahomes to the Super Bowl. I have people at my work that actually believe that the NFL told the refs, and I'm like, the NFL is the owners.
Yeah.
If all the owners told the refs that, it would include the team that the Chiefs are playing against.
Yeah. And they must be okay with it, which seems not likely, right?
I mean, it would be a scandal that would destroy the NFL if it was like, oh, there's nothing about this is real because all the owners meet in their secret cabal and decide who gets to win the Super Bowl that year. It just sounds so ridiculous to me that
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that people actually believe in it. But anyways, we have a rematch of 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think it is. Yep.
If you include this year, it's 3 years ago, 2 Super Bowls ago.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. I don't know who I'm even rooting for.
I know who I'm rooting for.
Because somebody has to win, right?
Yeah.
So part of me, this is my thinking on the game. I like Saquon Barkley. He's a great player. He seems like a genuinely good dude. Jalen Hurts, I think he's maybe a little overrated, but he's genuinely a good dude from what I can understand. Pretty decent player. There's nobody on the Eagles that I just straight up dislike.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's on there.
He doesn't even count, does he?
He's a starter.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And then I'm not a huge fan of their coach. On the other hand, I am curious to see if Mahomes and the Chiefs can go 3 in a row. That's been a long time since something like that's happened. And I like him. He seems to be a genuinely good dude. His brother may be annoying. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. Just like I don't care about the Taylor Swift aspect of Travis Kelce. I love Andy Reid. So it's tough for me because I really like Andy Reid. I like Patrick Mahomes. I think Kelce's great. I like Chris Jones. There's just not a lot to dislike about Kansas City outside of being jealous of their success. So I'm kind of rooting for Kansas City to go for the three-peat because those are interesting times to live in when you have something like that. But to be honest, I'll be fine with either team pulling it out. Are you rooting for a specific one?
Yeah, I'll be rooting for the Chiefs. I want the three-peat. I want to see something that's never happened in the NFL before. I want to see Patrick Mahomes achieve something that Tom Brady never did. I want to. Like, if Patrick Mahomes is on this streak, however long this streak lasts, then like he's building a case in real time for we could be watching literally the greatest, most successful quarterback the game's ever seen. Yeah. And okay, if the Lions can't win it, then I'd rather see history. So I don't particularly give a shit about the Eagles. Like, after there's a video going around the internet that after they won the championship game, there was a bunch of Eagles fans in the parking lot like celebrating, and someone's holding up their phone doing a TikTok, and some just random guy in the back of the crowd pulls out a handgun and just shoots like 4 shots off in the air. And I'm like, oh, wow, that is so Philadelphia. I can't even like that just screams Philadelphia. So like I don't have anything against them. Like I still want Jalen Carter on the Lions. Yep. I'm never gonna. That's not gonna happen. Obviously, I'm not gonna do it. But
Max Crosby, on the other hand, maybe.
No chance.
Well, he sent out a little tweet about that people are thinking he's pretty upset in Las Vegas and might be asking for a trade.
Okay, so
we'll see.
I put this at 0.0%. So we'll see what happens. He had the ability. He could have done that before he signed his extension. He could have done that at any point where he just demanded a trade. They don't have to.
Yeah, but you know what? As you and I both know, it doesn't matter. They can demand a trade at any point. Right. Even if they sign the contract in December, they can demand the trade now. So you never know.
It's true, but then the Lions have to be able to absorb him, and like. Yeah. The Lions roster is getting to a point where it's like, I don't know, you can absorb a contract like that. Especially. So
would you, assuming you could, right? Because obviously it would be a trade, and we'd have to be giving up assets, as far as like draft assets and whatnot. Mm-hmm. If they were able to pull that off, say we're going to give up this year's first, next year's first for him, and we now have to afford him. Would you do that knowing you probably can't also afford to keep Kirby Joseph?
Well, I would rather have him. Well, okay, so on a player for player level, I would rather have Max Crosby than Kirby Joseph.
Right.
He's 27, Max is.
Yeah.
So Kirby's younger, but like closer to the quarterback, in my opinion, better.
Right.
But it's not just Max Crosby for Kirby Joseph. Like I would probably think he's a 2 first-round pick player.
Yeah.
So,
and the fact that we have to let Kirby walk is my thought. Like we go 2 first, we get Max Crosby. We also have to let Kirby walk. So it's really 2 first and a Kirby for Max Crosby.
So Max Crosby is under contract for this coming season and the season after. So 25 and 26. He is owed $27.9 million and $24.8 million are his cap numbers in those successive years. Mm-hmm. If you trade for him before June, anytime before June 1st this year, the Lions have to eat $17.7 million, or
which we have,
which we do have,
which is good.
But you then have to sign your rookie class, which will be $11 million.
I was just thinking from a rollover perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're not going to get what they finished the year with in rollover.
Right.
But they'll get, like last year, I think they ended up getting something like over $7 million in cap for this coming year. So like, let's say, so right now they're projected to have $46 million. Let's say that when the new league year hits, the NFL says they get another $7 million. So they'll be $53 million under, right? So the Lions started this offseason or this last season with about $40 million in cap room and maybe a little bit more, and largely just used it. They had the Zadarius Smith trade. They elevated players from the practice squad. That's kind of how they like to roll. Yep. And well, you can, Joe, I think you can get Davenport for like $2 or $3 million. I mean, the Lions signed him to a 1-year, $4 million contract last year, and he played a couple of games and got hurt for the rest of the year. So, like, if anything, Marcus Davenport, that's who we're talking about, right?
Yeah, he's $2.3 million.
Yeah, so he's even cheaper if we're going to re-sign him, I would think, than he was last year. So, I mean, yeah. So Davenport is just like, if you want him, you can have him. Like, but the Lions are going to have, so when the new league year starts, Kirby Joseph, Jamison Williams, Aiden Hutchinson, and Josh Pascal are all up for contract extensions. So obviously that won't hit on, that won't hit that year's salary cap. But like if you're planning these things out, Kirby's taking a jump. Brad Holmes has already said, like, I can't understand how a player like him. Well, Levi Joseph was the 2021 class. That's Penny Sewell's class. So I also think that he is going to be relatively cheap to re-sign because this was his 4th year in the league, and this was the only time that he's had significant playing time. So like, I think
injuries.
The Lions will have a lot of leverage in the contract negotiations, but like, so he's just kind of like, I think that they would have to resign Levi and Uzurike because Ali McNeil and Christian Wingo are hurt, and those are your other 2 3-techs. So if you don't resign him, you don't have one really on the roster that's played any kind of significant snap counts. So,
and one thing to think about is if they do that, they might do a more incentive-based one, like, oh, well, we'll give you this lower base salary, but we're going to throw incentives in there in case you can actually play a full season. And the nice part about incentive-based contracts is they don't count against the cap. The incentives don't count against the cap unless they're, quote, likely to be achieved. And in this kind of a scenario, they're based on his past history, they're probably not going to be considered likely to be achieved. So they won't necessarily count against the cap initially. I think once he actually achieves them, then and they like lock in, then I believe it counts against the cap. But for a good chunk of the season, and possibly the whole season if he never meets them, it doesn't actually count against cap, which is pretty interesting.
So Onwuzurike played 635 snaps. That's pretty good. He had 45 pressures and 3 sacks. In those,
it's about like 7.5% pressure rate.
I don't know how pressure rate is.
Well, I'm just thinking he had how many pressures?
45.
45 out of 600 and something.
635. If it's just pressures divided by snaps,
yeah,
then
7%. That was real close.
Yeah, you were. That was remarkable. It's good. So I think that the dream of bringing home a big name in trade or in free agency is just not something that this team is likely to do. So good job for Max Crosby. Like go be a Las Vegas Raider. Like I'm thrilled for you.
Yeah.
But like
if we could get him, I'd take him. But I'm not sure. Like you said, I'm not sure how we fit him in there with the re-signings that we've got to have. Like we're not going to not re-sign Hutchinson because we got Crosby, right? So we have guys we have to do.
I mean, I'm predicting that Aiden Hutchinson's going to get the largest non-quarterback contract in the history of the NFL when he resigns. So I mean, I just don't know that there's Brad is spending. Brad is spending. So don't worry about that.
Yep.
As far as the Super Bowl preview is concerned, wait, do we do that already? Or are we?
We kind of talked about it.
I think that
we both kind of want the Chiefs.
I'm going to say 34-31 Chiefs.
So interesting. The Chiefs scored 32 points against Buffalo. That is the first time all season that they scored over 30 points.
Yep.
I'm not sure they're going to do that again against what's probably a better defense. But I do think they're going to win. I think they're going to, if they can contain Saquon Barkley, I think they'll win. So I'm thinking it's going to be something like 28-27 or 28-24. I don't think either team hits 30s. A lot of it will come down to turnovers and stuff as well.
Yeah, and hey, I just think that I think the Chiefs have a gear in the playoffs that like no other team has. Like,
just find a way.
You start like, well, I think we started to see it in the Buffalo game. Is like they are doing things that they didn't do at any point in the regular season. It's just like, like they ran Mahomes off tackle. Like they have not done that. And like they just have a gear, a plan, a way about them. They've been there a bunch.
Yep.
And like
their 2022 draft class has never not been to the Super Bowl.
That's pretty cool.
Isn't that crazy?
That's pretty cool.
So. And I will say one of the things, and one of the reasons why I really love Andy Reid, I think he's a phenomenal coach, but one of the things he does really well, in my opinion, is he gets his team to play smart. Joseph mentioned Chiefs play damn good situational football. Totally agree with that, but also, man, they are really good about not taking dumb penalties. You see guys like, oh, I could have lined up and hit Josh Allen just as he was running out of bounds, and they hold up. They don't do that. They don't put themselves in the situation where they're going to get a stupid penalty, a roughing the passer, or a late hit, or something like that. And I think a lot of that comes down to coaching and instilling that discipline of like, all right, recognize this, and they saved themselves on defense a lot of potential wasted yards on superfluous, roughing the passer calls or whatever. So if they can keep that smart play, if they can stop Saquon Barkley, I think they're gonna come away with a three-peat. I'm here for it. Like it's fun to watch, like history in the making. And technically, every Super Bowl victory, regardless of who makes it, is history. But like this is kind of special.
agreed.
So what else we got going on? We got the coaching carousel. We talked a little bit about that last week. Aaron Glenn went to the Jets as their head coach. Ben Johnson went to Chicago, but they took a bunch of guys with them. You want to talk about some of those guys and what that means for us?
Well, so we have lost a total of 6 coaches. The one that didn't get poached, quote unquote, is Terrell Williams. He's now New England's defensive coordinator. And Antoine Randall L. went to Chicago to be their assistant head coach and wide receivers coach. And JT Barrett left to be QB's coach. Is it? Can't remember.
It'll come across the ticker here in a minute.
Yeah. So QB coach.
Yeah,
so,
QB coach.
He gets Mark Brunell's job in Chicago. So, and I've been kind of following the coaching carousel here a little bit, and apparently Antoine Randall L's goal, his professional goal, is to become a head coach in the NFL. He wants that. He wants to do that. And so, even though it's a lateral move, he gets to put assistant head coach on his resume for Ben, and he gets to work with Caleb Williams. So now, even though it looks like a lateral move, he is building out his roster of I've worked with these guys. Right. So Jared Goff, when Jared Goff was at his best, Caleb Williams when he was an up and comer, who knows what Caleb Williams is going to look like for the rest of his career. So he could be a big part of that. Not a bad star to hit or wagon to hit your start. I don't understand the saying, but it's not bad to attach yourself to a guy with that kind of potential.
Right.
And I think JT Barrett got a promotion. He's going to be a quarterback's coach, not an assistant. And so everybody's kind of taken a step forward when they followed Ben to Chicago. The Lions have also promoted Kelvin Shepard to be their new defensive coordinator. So that was an internal hire. And then they have hired Casey Rogers from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be their defensive line coach. And they fired Cam Davis, who was the assistant defensive line coach. So I think that was more about Casey Rogers wanting to build his own staff for our defensive line than it is, the guy was bad at his job. So they also promoted Hank Fraley to run game coordinator. So now he's basically going to be in charge of the running game and the offensive line. So, and I think he got an assistant head coach pin to put on his lapel. And then the last thing I've seen as far as the coaching carousel today was that the Jets are looking to make Tanner Engstrand their head coach or their offensive coordinator. So
I'm like, wow, what is
there's so many
we'll take AG back.
Yeah, Taylor Decker. So it's very likely that Tanner's gone.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself when they hired John Morton.
Yep. Not Johnny Morton, the receiver from the 90s, different John Morton.
He apparently was a senior offensive coach, consultant, helper outer guy on the Lions as recently as 2022, and then went to be the Broncos passing game coordinator. He and Dan both worked for Sean Payton in New Orleans, and so there is familiarity there with Morton and Dan Campbell. So I think that's probably what we're seeing here is that, and this guy had a hand in Bo Nix having what I would consider to be a very successful rookie season, for the Denver Broncos. And so now he will be back in Detroit. Took a year or two off, did some things, saw some places, and go Birds. Yeah. Work to be. So
yeah.
But now he's quote unquote home, right? He's back with his crew, and so he'll probably be really good. And I don't think that it's going to be the kind of thing that you look at the Detroit Lions offense next year and you're like, what are they doing? This doesn't look anything like. I think that it's going to look very similar, if not identical, to what we saw this season. Hey, Kathy.
Hey, Kath. Hey, Mike. So Michael Wartnaby is a Eagles fan, diehard Philadelphia fan.
By choice.
So by choice, yep. Grew up in that area, from what I understand. So I'm kind of curious what he thinks the keys are to the game for the Eagles. I'm not sure if he was listening earlier, but like we were kind of talking. I think the Chiefs need to stop Saquon, and that's got to be what they do. I'm kind of curious what Mike thinks. So throw it in the chat what you think the keys are for you guys to get a dub. Really not a choice, born into it. Yep, I feel that.
Yeah, I feel that way about Michigan. So my dad was a fan, so I'm a fan. Kind of a scenario.
He says no turnovers and we win.
Hey, Hatters.
Turnovers is a big piece. Just ask Jared Goff, and then ask the Commanders the following week. Turnovers ruined both those games for those guys.
Not to just be a piece of shit, but like, did Jared Goff have the worst performance by a quarterback in these playoffs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Contain Mahomes. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one, Mahomes. Hey, I want a couple more hours of sleep. I'll just turn off the sun, Like,
yeah, I think stopping Kelsey from getting open is another one of those. You're like, I guess we'll give it a go, give it the old college try, but for whatever reason, everybody knows it's coming to him, and he's still wide freaking open.
To be honest, like sometimes when you're up against players like who are, generational. Is the right term for a player like Patrick Mahomes. Sometimes the actual best strategy is like, maybe they got the flu or some shit. Like
spike the water in the hotel. What?
Michael Jordan's like flu game or whatever, where he actually had food poisoning because those pieces of shit like poisoned his pizza that he got at 3 a.m. Like, so let's see what he says here. We play like we have been and dominate the line of scrimmage. I don't see anyone beating us. Manage the clock wisely and definitely don't want Mahomes to have the ball last. You're right. It sounds simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck.
And you're right. You don't want Mahomes to have the ball last.
No, you do not.
Because he's either going to be A, kneeling in victory formation, or B, driving down to win the freaking game.
Yeah, it should be good. This is why we play the game, right? Because if it was just solved on paper, there wouldn't be any surprises or excitement or anything. So, you got to play. You got to play to see what actually happens. So it should be fun. So, I'm looking forward to it.
Back to the coaching stuff. What do you see Kelvin Shepherd bringing to the team? Because he was with us before, right? He was our linebackers coach. Very well respected. I'm not surprised. In fact, this was one of the guys that I think we both called last week. We thought Kelvin Shepherd would be the guy. We were both wrong on John Morton, though. That one kind of came out of the blue.
I don't know.
But what do you... right? I thought maybe it was going to be Hank Fraley, maybe Mark Brunell, Antoine Randall L. Those guys all have... they're in-house also, so you get that continuity. So I was a little expecting that, but... Kelvin Shepherd, man, I saw that coming. What all do you think he brings to the team? Like, what do you think Dan saw in him to pick him as an internal candidate as opposed to going to outside?
I think it's largely about who he is as a person and what he brings into the facility every day. Everything I've ever heard about Kelvin Shepherd is like, wears his heart on his sleeve, incredibly hard worker. Like, guys love playing for him. Like, that's a theme. Like, before you and I started doing this podcast, and when I would pay attention to things like the NFL draft or roster building, I would hear things like how he shows up to the facility, like wears his heart on his sleeve. And I would think like, that's just things people say on air in order to create content. Like, it's not real. No one cares about that. They care about how tall you are, how fast you are, like where you went to college, or if you are the new next genius,
measurables.
right? If you're the next genius level Wunderkid to come out of like the college football spectrum and like help a team in the NFL. But since we have done this, and since I've started to pay attention to the Lions on a deeper level, I think that what Dan Campbell cares about is exactly that kind of stuff. Like he wants lead by example guys. And I think that he really wanted continuity in what they're trying to do. So in my opinion, on both sides of the ball, I think that the Lions are going to look remarkably similar to what it was when Ben and Aaron were here.
Yep.
You have Hank Fraley designing the run game on the offensive side. John Morton will be doing John Morton.
Play calling.
Will be doing the passing game stuff with Goff.
Yep.
And one of them, I'm assuming it's Morton, is going to call the plays. And then on the defensive side, I think Kelvin Shepard is going to be as close to what Aaron Glenn was as you could have gotten to, realistically, without just completely changing your scheme. So, he's ours now. Mike, sorry,
you can't have him.
That's our coach. But I also think to myself, like, there was too much of like, this is who we are, this is our identity, we're going to stamp this in stone and we'll live and die by this. Like, I think that you have to be able to be adaptive. So the thing that I'm hoping for out of the like Morton Fraley combo, out of the Kelvin Shepard coaching style on the defense, is, can you adapt? Like, yes, we want to be man coverage. We want to rush for drop 7 into coverage. We want to tackle well. These are the hallmarks of what they want this defense to be. Can you also understand that, like, when you play Jaden Daniels, that it might be okay to be in zone, like
a little bit
more, or whatever, just because keeping him in front of you is so important, like that type of thing. Like, I'm not asking for you have to look like this the whole season and then look like something totally different. But situationally, like, can you be adaptive? And so I'm hoping that Kelvin is largely that. Plus, I want him to be successful. It seems like he's paid his dues, earned a shot, kind of thing, and that's what this coaching staff and organization is largely about.
So one of the things I think I'm hearing is culture creators, right? Dan Campbell has a specific culture that he wants to have in the building, and these are guys that, well, Kelvin has been there, right? So he's been in the midst of that culture the whole time, and he knows what Dan's looking for, but he's going to be continuing to create that culture. And you're also expecting John Morton to have that same type of mentality to bring continuity to the culture on the offensive side of the ball as well.
Yes. So I don't think that any of these guys get hired if they can't achieve that.
Yeah.
So I don't know about Casey Rogers. He's the only guy on the coaching staff that I currently think does not have any kind of past working relationship with Dan Campbell. But, like, his contract ran out in Tampa Bay and the Lions called him up and just hired him. Like, they flew him up, they did an interview, and they hired him. So he must be doing something that they like, and usually you don't have that kind of insight unless you have worked with a dude. So there's got to be some connection there. Sam Darnold made it too.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold made what too? First coach to get a Chicago QB to 4,000 yards will be made for life. Sam Darnold made it too. I'm missing something, Brian. I'm not making. You gotta connect these dots for me. I'm not seeing the puzzle. Um, all in all, the Lions are, if the Lions lose Tanner Engstrand, which looks likely, I think that they will have lost a lot of their brain trusts.
Yeah.
And
we talked last week about the continuity, right? And even as we were kind of predicting who would fill the offensive and defensive coordinator positions, we kind of talked about like they're probably not going to both be internal. It's very rare that both. That's rare when both coordinators are gone and have to be refilled in the same year. There's a lot of times it's staggered for one reason or another. But a lot of times people don't only look inside, and they always bring somebody from the outside just to get another perspective or whatever. So I think you and I both kind of predicted that one would be internal, one would be external. We just didn't know how it would look. Are you surprised that it's not the offense that was internal? When it comes to like the consistency and like, all right, we want to keep some continuity, we want to keep some consistency. Were you surprised that wasn't like if you had to pick one, Dan, like you can pick one person to promote from within and you get one person from outside? Are you a little surprised that we went defense from within and then offense from without?
I am, because the only thing that we have heard in Detroit for like 2 years is Tanner Engstrand.
Other than Ben Johnson, right?
Sure. Yeah, naturally. But like, so when Ben leaves, like who's new Ben? And it's Tanner.
Yeah.
And he doesn't appear to be in the plans. And I'm curious why. Like, does Dan just have more trust and like a longer working relationship with Morton? There has to be a reason for that. Like, is it because Morton has worked with Bo Nix and like Bo Nix, they like what the Denver was doing with their passing offense, as opposed to not knowing what Tanner Engstrand would look like as a first-time play caller? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But it is surprising. It's fine with me. I mean, like Tanner Engstrand has only ever been like an assistant and a passing game coordinator. I mean, so what are you really losing? I mean, like maybe he's awesome. Maybe he goes to the Jets and reinvents football, and not every single offense in the NFL is based off on the West Coast. But I have a hard time believing that the dude is reinventing the wheel. How much of the offense is Dan's? Well, I mean, I don't know that I look at it that way. I don't look at it much differently, but like from everything that I have heard, Ben Johnson created this offense largely. I mean, obviously Dan has input. Obviously, it's a lot. But like Ben Johnson created the offense the Detroit Lions have run for the last 2 years in concert with Jared Goff. They worked on it together. Terminology, play call, the layering. Like Jared Goff, from everything that I've read, has had as much blood, sweat, and tears into that as Ben Johnson has. Ben was the one calling the plays, obviously. So like Ben is going to get the credit for the philosophy of the offense. That's fine. And I think that is going to stay because it exists inside of Jared Goff, and they've committed themselves to Jared Goff. And so I think Goff, who also I've read from Lions reporters, was instrumental in like getting his opinion on who he wanted to work with. So I don't know how much of John Morton is Jared Goff signing off on him, but he had to have signed off on him.
You think so?
I don't see that there's any way that they don't at least call Jared Goff and say, hey, we're talking about signing John Morton, and Jared Goff at least goes, oh yeah, I remember him. He was cool. Like when he was here in 2022, that was Goff's second year here, so like that was the 9-8 season.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that they certainly didn't hire the dude and been like, oh, Jared's furious. Well, that's right. Someone go calm Jared down, like,
right.
This still feels like, even though these faces are new and a lot of people left, this still feels like, okay, the kids went off to college, but like mom, dad, the uncles, and the cousins are all still having like Thanksgiving Day dinner together, like it just, I feel like the team will look like themselves because they are molded off of Dan, not as coordinators. The guys he brings in will be similar enough to work well. The team will change when Dan does. That's a great summary. That's a great summary. That's a really eloquent summary. I don't think I could have said it better.
We got the best people in chat.
Yeah, we have really good folks.
And occasionally there's Philadelphia Eagles fans.
Yeah.
So
we do let in.
I did check with Michael, see when we do our live draft show where we get a whole bunch of people. He said he's still in for
good
doing the NFC East. So
that's great because I took him to the absolute cleaners last year. So I'm thrilled. I mean, there's only one Howie Roseman. Let's say, no matter who wears the Eagles jersey. No, I'm just kidding, Mike.
That's funny.
Friendly teasing. I'm jealous of your team's success.
Yeah. So, right. Yeah.
So no, I'm looking forward to the change. I don't think I am expecting regression because of change.
Yep.
And we have an unbelievably difficult schedule next year, just shocking.
Aren't we like the third hardest or something in the NFL?
Something like that. I mean, I looked at it and I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And
that's a bummer.
And we only have 8 home games, so we have 9 road games, which makes
we were undefeated on the road this year, so that's
I hope that continues.
Difficult to do. So, well, let's talk a little bit about some off-season planning. We talked a little bit about it last week.
Something to share.
Outstanding. Let's do it.
I have to remember how to share. Oh, here it is.
See, guys, that's why I'm here typically, is on the production and coordination side of the technology.
Oh, there it is right there. Okay. And then I got to come back here, and then I got to add this to the chat, and then I got to do the thing that I always yell at you to do.
Yeah.
Which is to go in here and make this.
Can you zoom in? I can't see it.
I'm zooming in, Mike. Okay, so Mike was cool enough last week to make a preliminary list of free agents that the Lions are going to have to re-sign. And so if you guys are not going to the Pride of Detroit site to get updated information on Detroit, you really should. Eric Schlitt is a scout. He does great stuff. And he put out this list. And it's every single free agent that is on the roster and what type of free agent they are. So here we have, the list is more extensive than this. So here are unrestricted free agents. Remember, unrestricted means that if a player leaves an unrestricted free agency and signs the team, there is a chance that they can count towards compensatory draft picks. So these are the guys who could leave that would count toward any compensatory formula, right? And by definition, if the Lions sign any of these guys who were unrestricted free agents from other teams, they would negatively count against our compensatory pick formula. So that the two ways
kind of counteract. Right? Yeah.
So Joseph Ostin and a couple other guys in chat here have been talking about Levi and Wuzurike, Marcus Davenport. They are in fact unrestricted free agents. So let's talk about these guys. And I guess, Mike, the way that I kind of want to do this is go through this list and be like, what do you think? Would you bring these guys back? And guys,
let's
in
do
the chat, answer, throw your opinions in. Would you not? Who's your favorite? All that kind of stuff. Just hit us up. Oh, that's right. Sam did have a terrible playoff game. Teddy Bridgewater was our emergency quarterback in the playoffs, except he was really the backup. So assuming that, and he has said publicly that he is unretired, he wants to play football again. So if you are the Detroit Lions, would you make Teddy Bridgewater your primary backup to Jared Goff for next season?
I don't think I would. You've got Hendon Hooker. I think you still need to see what he can do. And if you are already convinced that he is just not even backup quality, don't tell people and try to trade him before they find out. But I think you got to give that guy a chance to be that guy. And if that means a little bit more time behind Jared Goff, then as the number 2 and getting those reps, then I would do it. So for Bridgewater, I would say no. Unless it's a veteran minimum.
Right. Brian, the answer to your question is it seems unbelievably likely that Tanner Engstrand will be Aaron Glenn's offensive coordinator, was the last report that I saw. So I would put it at 90-10 in favor that he's gone. So he's the betting favorite. So Tim Patrick.
I think we keep him.
Broncos cut him. We picked him up a couple games in, acclimated to the offense. I thought he was just an excellent piece.
Yeah.
Kind of shocking that the NFL let the Detroit Lions have him,
Right. How did nobody else see that? But, sometimes you just need a different place to call home, and things work out a little bit differently, right?
Yeah, the difference for Tim Patrick this year, as opposed to the previous 2 years that he played in the NFL, is that the previous 2 years ended in major injuries, and the Broncos just didn't have any faith. They had changed coaches, and they cut him loose, and so Lions picked him up for a song. I think that I would try and re-sign him on like a 2-year deal. No on Teddy, yes on Patrick. Okay, so Joe's in line. He does everything that the Lions want from that position. He's big.
Yep.
He blocks extremely well and is interested in blocking. He's not hanging out on the outskirts of the play. He's taking it to his defender and doing his job. And he seems like, from everything that I've seen and heard, like he seems very excited about playing on this squad in this role.
Yeah. Who wouldn't?
I mean, right?
Cast off to Super Bowl contender, right? Like, I'd be pumped.
So I think, I looked up some like contract projections on PFF, and they're predicting something like $4 million, $5 million, and some like playing time incentives for him. So at that price, he's just unbelievably affordable.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of Tim Patrick. I want him back very badly.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson is Tim Patrick Jr. He's the same kind of player. I read up a little bit something about him today on Pride of Detroit. Like, he's Tim Patrick in every other way conceivable, except that he can't beat Tim Patrick out for playing time. So he only saw like 11 snaps all season. And so that makes him a practice squad player. And we're going to talk about practice squad players in a little bit. And I just don't have a spot for him on the practice squad. So he might have one at some point.
Yeah, I would also put him as a no. So we've got our starters at wide receiver. Here's our depth chart. It's from the Detroit Lions website. Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tim Patrick are the 3 starting wide receivers.
Yep.
Behind those guys are Khalif Raymond and Allen Robinson.
Okay.
And they don't have a third backup.
Sure.
I just don't think I don't think it's worth re-signing him when we have the draft coming up and we can get someone of, at the very least, similar quality, like a backup, a number 4, number 5, type of guy. Actually, he's probably number 5, right? Because he's not playing in front of Khalif Raymond. I just don't think he's that. So we can get a 5th best wide receiver quality dude in the draft in the mid rounds for cheaper. So I would say no.
We might disagree on this next one. Dan Skipper.
He has not been impressive at all to me. I would let him walk.
He is enormous.
He is.
He played, I believe, 33 snaps this season. You like Teddy. He's a funny guy. Therefore, we should sign him also need to resign Patrick. Well, I'm with you on Patrick, LM. I didn't know that he was funny though. That's kind of cool. Kind of makes me respect him more. I am a no on Dan Skipper just because like he was a bubble player on Hard Knocks. He's hung around for the next 2 seasons. He kind of has this like cult following because of the Dallas game, and he caught the touchdown pass this year. And I think people like him, but like they traded a future pick to draft Giovanni Manu, and that dude is just about as big, way more athletic, and like in line to take Dan Skipper's snaps. So I mean, like, if I want to develop, so you knocked my thing out of the.
We'll put it on since we're talking Dan Skipper and performance. This is his PFF grades for each game this season. He had one game that was really good. He had 5 snaps that game. 6 snaps this game. So all the others were not good.
I must be thinking 33 snaps in like as a 6th, as like lined up as eligible receiver or something. Anyways,
yeah, I'm not sure.
The 324 snaps that he played should go to Manu to develop him in real game situations.
Agreed.
Yeah.
If there were more green up here, I would say, well, let's give him a chance. He's decent on the depth side, but 44, 50, 51, 48, 53, 50, like these are not grades that are good enough to keep on in lieu of somebody that we want to develop.
Yeah. So here's one I think we'll agree on. Kevin Zeitler, who the Lions apparently have talked to, and has the one report that I found about it has said that he has expressed an interest to return.
Nice. I had read that his best fit was going to be in Minnesota and that we would probably lose him. I would love to see him coming back. So
those best fit things always take into account that like they always want you to change teams.
Yeah.
You know, and so the contract that I saw, and this seems low. Of course, him signing for $6 million this year also seemed low. Like the contract that I saw projected for him was 1 year, $10 million, fully guaranteed. And I was like, fine. That seems like a small price to pay for like a Pro Bowl guard, you know? Yeah, Joseph, I like what you're doing with the chat. Other guys in chat, see what Joseph's doing by keeping up and saying what his opinion is. Let's do that a little bit.
Do that too. Do that too.
So to me, if Kevin Zeitler comes back, you just re-sign him. If he wants to come back, there you go, LM. See, there we go. If he decides to retire, I just put Christian Mahogany as my right guard, and I just don't even think about it. Like, you're the starter. We're going to pencil
another enormous human being.
Yeah, he's very big. Weirdly proportioned, but good, but a good kid. So here's the next guy. We don't know much about this guy because he was hurt all year, and that's Netani Moody. He is already re-signed, so he is on the roster for next season. Like, the Lions have signed 2 guys to contracts who are unrestricted free agents. Moody's one of them, and everything that I've heard was that back in the preseason, going into the season, he was in line to basically have the Christian Mahogany role, and then he got hurt. And so then Mahogany, who was also hurt or sick, depending on what you heard. If anybody knows why Christian Mahogany was hurt for like the first half of the season, I would love to know why. I have not heard anything about what kept him out. I heard an illness, but like I was thinking like mononucleosis or something, and that's only like a month. So like I don't know what could have kept him out. But I think it's likely that Christian Mahogany is in line for one of the 2 guard spots, even if it means beating out Graham Glasgow. But Moody is going to be on the team as a guard backup, and there's no use to like saying what we would do. Like, he's going to be on the roster, so he's no longer
there.
An unrestricted free agent. It's a mystery. HIPAA loss. Yeah, we can't ask because of HIPAA. Those bastards.
And you say he will be on the roster. He will be on the roster through training camp, not necessarily on the 50. He may not make it through training camp, right? They're going to be bringing 80 guys in or 90 guys in, but he will at least have that opportunity.
Yeah, they could always cut him. I am of the opinion that he will be on like the game day roster as a backup. So Marcus Davenport, like, I'm gonna go first here. He is the definition of what they want physically for that role, opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Height, weight, speed, all of it. Like the way that he plays, all of it. He's the guy, the definition of what you want. He just happened to get hurt. He does that a lot. If they're going to sign Emmanuel Mosley to play 3 snaps for them over 2 years, they will re-sign Marcus Davenport to almost a nothing contract.
I think he's worth keeping as long as it is a incentive-based contract that it starts low and ends high.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
If he's like, I want $20 million a year, no incentive, I'd be like, peace out, bro.
That's never going to happen. He knows that.
Right.
So
I would assume so as well.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, then he needs to get a new agent that's going to be a little bit honest with him.
Al-Quadin Muhammad played really well, I thought, in spurts, considering that he was like the 5th pass rusher they tried out over the season. He had some good games. I thought he made some impactful plays. Probably doesn't score as well on PFF as I think that he should. But I think he's earned like a 1-year deal to be on the roster at some point. So like, I guess that's just it. Like, I just think that he's played well enough to basically say, like, we'll give you a look for a year. So
he ended up with a 60.0 grade overall.
Yeah.
So, which is not terrible. It's not, it's not Pro Bowl, but it's not terrible.
I mean, if you're getting
because he was always filling in too, right? So he wasn't usually starting. So a lot of times you're coming in cold and that kind of stuff. So I thought he played okay. And his coverage grade was at 80.7. Like, he actually did a pretty good job when he had to drop into coverage from that edge spot.
If your 5th or 6th edge rusher is scoring a 60, you should probably. I mean, that's probably not bad. Levi Onwuzurike is as close to, I think, quote unquote, need to re-sign as they have on this list, because Wingo and McNeil are still hurt, and they're the only other 3 techs on the roster. So, I mean, if you want someone to fill the role, he's the only guy on the roster right today that isn't hurt. So
he played 16 games, played 635 snaps. He was a 69.4 grade. Like, that's pretty solid.
Yeah. I'm thinking something like 2 years, $8 million a year is probably pretty fair for what amounts to a backup who will get starter snaps. So, obviously a healthy Aleem McNeil sees his snap count shrink significantly. And I liked Mekhi Wingo when he wasn't hurt. He made an impact a couple of games, but they're not healthy, and so you got to pay a little bit for health, which is weird because he's the one that's hurt. So nice role reversal. John Kaminsky, he plays that Marcus Davenport, Josh Paschal role, more of an inside guy than an outside guy. But I'm sorry, bro. Like, I love you, and like, you were here like in the early Campbell days, like setting the tone and the culture. But we got to make some cuts, and like, you're one of the cuts. So,
I'm on board with that one as well. Yeah,
Jonah Williams, we picked him up from the Rams. Obviously, Brad was familiar with him from his time in Los Angeles. Didn't play much, mostly a practice squatter who would be elevated as needed. I don't remember him having any like standout plays. I think that if they were to re-sign him, it would be to the practice squad. That's about it.
I'm looking on PFF. I don't see him even on the list as a graded player for us. Did he actually get snaps?
He played like the first week that he was here, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Dr. Detroit's saying that Tanner is officially gone. Now I'm looking on Twitter to see if I can find anything that would indicate that Tanner has signed with the Jets. Oh, Aaron Glenn says that he will not call the defensive plays. That's interesting. Wait, did you see Liam Cohen, the Jags' new coach, and his press conference? No. Oh, dude, he sounded so awkward and weird. Really gross. I don't see anything about Tanner answering like a really quick scan.
And I did find Jonah. I didn't realize that I was looking at the offense. He is not on the offense. He did play 2 games, 36 snaps, 44.5. He can take his 44.5 grade somewhere else.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Let's see. Pat O'Connor. So Pat O'Connor was their nose tackle who was backing up DJ Reader after Kyle Pecco got hurt, and because Broderick Martin is just not good yet. And so I think that we'll just do both of these guys together. Kyle Pecco and Pat O'Connor, they play the same position. They are backup nose tackle. So the depth at nose tackle for Detroit. Well, I mean, to some degree, Joseph, I think that he's probably justified in having his feelings hurt. Like, I think that I don't know exactly what was said to him, but like the speculation was this kid's the next guy in line, and then he didn't get the job. So I mean, like, if I would go to where they wanted me and are going to give me more money and give me more responsibility for the career that I chose. So anytime I hear the term butthurt, I usually think that it means that like it's not justified that his feelings are hurt. Like it's unjustifiable why he feels that way or why somebody feels that way. Maybe that's not how you meant it. But like, I think it's like totally legit. I mean, they went outside the organization to make a hire for a guy that was there 2 years ago. So, I don't know. Thought Mahogany had...
Well, and back to Patrick O'Connor and Pecco, those two guys are 43.5 and 45.8 grades, respectively.
Yeah, not great. What was Broderick Martin?
Broderick Martin was a 43.5 as well.
Right. So they're all the same.
Yeah.
So until there's some kind of...
They're all bad. Well, none of them played well.
So in my opinion, I think that nose tackle, effectively the role that DJ Reader plays, like he's a 0 or a 1 technique, is on the table for the Lions in the first round of the draft. So like, I don't think he will be there when they show up, but I think somebody like Kenneth Grant from Michigan is a nose tackle, or Deone Walker from Kentucky is another guy that plays that 0 or 1 tech. And like, I would not blink at all about the Lions picking up a guy like that in the first or second round and have that be like, okay, Martin hasn't progressed. We like some things that Pat O'Connor does. We like some things that Kyle Pecco does, but these guys are practice squatters mostly. Like, let's draft for depth for the future of this position on our line. That's just how I think that interior defensive line is as big a need as any other position on the roster. Yeah, it's damn important and expensive. Okay. Derek Barnes. This is kind of one that I have up, and I'm a little bit confused by, so help me figure it out.
Yeah.
Is Derek Barnes worth keeping?
Well, let's take a look at what he did this year. He only played 3 games.
That's right.
Obviously because of injury, right? He averaged 40 snaps for those 3 games, for total 120 snaps. He had a 71.8 overall grade, 77.2 defensive grade, run defense, 71 tackling, 66.6 coverage, and a 57.7 pass rush. I mean, to me, when we're looking at guys like, and I know they play different positions, but your Pat O'Connors, your Broderick Martins that are sitting in the 40s, those are no-brainers that we're like that just isn't enough to keep bringing on the squad. But do you want to let a 71.8 overall go? He is the 9th highest graded player on our defense.
So here's the question that I have. So there's two ways that I'm looking at this. Number one, what you said. Like he seems like he's a good player. Right?
Yep.
Lions play base 4-3 under Aaron Glenn a lot. So he would have been on the field a lot if he was healthy. Starter snaps.
Yep.
I don't know that he fits exactly what they want to do for a Sam linebacker or a pass rushing linebacker who can also hold up against the run. I wonder if you can find a better Derek Barnes in round 2 of this draft. There's a guy that I really like as a linebacker for UCLA. His name's Carson Swessinger. I don't know if he'll be there in round 2. He's a little bit smaller, more of a Rodrigo build, but like the dude is a demon. I really like the way that he plays. And I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like that or like Barrett Carter from Clemson like end up in that role. But Derek Barnes is a proven commodity. Here's the thing that makes me wonder if they don't re-sign him. They didn't extend him when he got into his League 4 season, which was this last season. They extended Amon-Ra St. Brown. They extended Penei Sewell. Those types of players that have become quote-unquote pillars. They didn't extend Derek Barnes. And Derek Barnes had played pretty well, for a couple of years. So is this an indication they're not likely to re-sign him? Here's the thing that also makes me think that they will re-sign him. There's no one. There's like Trevor Nowatzki and one other guy on the roster that even play anything close to the same role. So like the fall off from Derek Barnes is Trevor Nowatzki as a full-time starter. So if you don't re-sign Derek Barnes, you effectively have no starter. And I would rather re-sign Derek Barnes than sign an unrestricted free agent to play in the same role. And I just don't think, I think with him being hurt, his price has gone down. So, I mean, I would think that they are more likely to re-sign Derek Barnes than not, but they had a chance at the beginning of the new league year last year to do that when they signed the rest of the guys, and they didn't. In fact, they even they extended McNeil after they signed everybody else. So like he wasn't even in the next group of players as far as the priority was concerned to re-sign. So I don't think they view him as this dude is like
super critical.
Yeah, he's not Anzalone. He's not Jack Campbell when it comes to our linebacking core. Like he's a guy. Like what is the situation determined that we should do?
Yeah.
So I like him. I wish he would have sacked Dak Prescott in that Dallas game 2 years ago. That would have been cool. But I didn't want him to get hurt. So I'm a 51% yes on re-signing Derek Barnes. If they don't re-sign him, I'm not crying about it.
Yeah, I would re-sign him if he is willing to come at a reasonable price. Like I don't want to overpay for the guy, but I would keep him around if I could.
Cohen was super weird, perfect fit. Yeah, he was weird, dude. Like I was like, what? if I was Shad Khan and I saw that and I just hired him, I'm like, you're fired. We're going back into the market immediately. Ben Neiman, they really like this guy. They've hidden him on their practice squad and elevated him to game day rosters in years past just to keep him away from being signed by other teams who were in rough spots. He's your backup to Jack Campbell. Like he's your backup middle linebacker.
And he's going to be cheap.
He's going to be cheap. So, I mean, I'm pro re-signing Ben Neiman just because I think he's like somewhere between like the 45th and 51st player on the roster. And he's familiar now.
And he had a 55.2 grade. Obviously, it's not super green, super high, but as a backup, could be worse, right? We were talking about dudes in the 40s. Right. So he is kind of at that bubble of like, do you keep him or not? But, he played 12 games, 178 snaps, filled in reasonably well. Sure tackler, poor in coverage, and run defense was pretty decent. So I think you keep working with him. He's not old, right? He's a fairly young dude, and you can keep working with him. And I think you can bump that 55 grade up to low 60s maybe next year even.
Yeah, that would be great. Ezekiel Turner is the guy that we signed when it really got bad and we had Anzalone was still out. I don't think he has a chance.
He's also a sub 50 grade.
Yeah. So I imagine that he could end up on the practice squad at some point during the season, but I expect that's probably where he is in his career.
Yeah.
We're going to disagree on this next guy. I'm almost certain. Carlton Davis. What do you want to do?
I'd resign him.
I wouldn't.
He was our best cornerback.
Yeah, it's true.
On the worst position group that we have on our team.
So, yeah, maybe. I don't think I would. And here's the reason why. Is that his contract that he signed with Detroit was for $14 million. And
he's got $9 million dead cap money next year.
Yeah. And they restructured it. They restructured his contract immediately.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, so the contract projection that I saw from PFF was 3 years, $14 million a year. Well, that's what you already paid him that money. So if he asks for that again, then I would sign him. Here's the thing. I think he's probably going to ask for something more like 19 a year, which is near the top of the cornerback market in a year where there aren't a ton of quarterbacks going into the market. You have Travarius Ward, who might be an unrestricted free agent.
So you're saying he's got some leverage?
I think that if he were to quote unquote test the waters, someone would be like, when you played in Detroit, you played pretty well, and that kind of thing. And Ennis Rakestraw tweeted out before during the playoffs that while Carlton was out and Ennis was coming off of in his 21-day window that he was told that he was slated to start on the outside before he re-pulled his hamstring or whatever it was that kept him out. So here's what I see. I think Carlton Davis is in the spot where this is the last real contract I'm getting. And if he's I want to stay in Detroit, I'm willing to play for 14 or 15 a year. Okay, I'll stay in Detroit because Detroit's fine with it. But if he's going to ask for 18 or 19, I think that I have to make a decision because do I want to resign Derek Barnes and somebody else with the money that I would otherwise give to Carlton Davis? The Lions are probably to the point now with the roster, they're going to have to start asking do we want Carlton Davis at 19, or do we want Derek and Levi Muzurike at 8 and Derek Barnes at 7? They're probably to the point where they have to start making those types of decisions.
Yeah.
And I'm just up for give me the more players at this point. And I think you go into year 2 of Terry and Arnold, you move a Meek to the outside and Rakestraw's your nickel. And then you go into this draft class and you pick up 1 or 2 more corners mid to late rounds, and you just keep cycling through, and that's how I would do it. But I don't know what Brad will do. Brad usually surprises me.
Yep.
So that also plays into these next 2 guys, one of which you hate, Kindle Vilder. And
I'm gonna swap the screen share here in a minute when we talk about Kindle Vildor.
So I have a hard time believing that Kindle Vilder is back on the team. However, there are people who follow the Lions who think that the Lions value having a quote-unquote veteran corner, which he is at this point in his career. Whether or not he's good, he's a veteran. Khalil Dorsey is a special teamer that has played well on special teams, so he's likely back as a special teamer who happens to be a cornerback. And if you get down to your 6th corner that you need to play, then he'll probably go in and play. But Khalil Dorsey, I think, is back. I don't think Vilder will be back.
So I'm going to pop over to my screen here for a second. So Joe Chap says, fun fact on Kindle Vildor, he allowed the lowest reception percentage on the Detroit Lions in 2024. That's actually not true. Khalil Dorsey actually had the lowest completion percentage. 4 for 9 for 44.4% completion. But kind of fun fact number 2, Vildor ended the season with a 45.0 coverage grade. Dorsey was at 46. So Vildor was our second worst cornerback on the team, just a teeny bit above rookie Ennis Rakestraw's 41 grade. And he only had 23 snaps, so he didn't have a ton of time to boost anything, right? He was the 197th best graded coverage grade for cornerbacks in the NFL out of 221. So he is in the bottom 11% of the entire NFL. So if he's making our team, our secondary is just bad. Like, if you are in the bottom 10% of your position group in the entire NFL and you're making a team like the Lions, we are stretched thin and we just do not have a good secondary. So I don't see him coming back. You just can't be that bad and keep coming back, right?
Well, I mean, I think that the cornerback room looks like something like Terrian Amik Ennis, Khalil Dorsey, rookie, and then do you sign a guy that gets cut? Do you make a trade for a guy, or do you bring back a guy that you already knows who you are and what you're about? Like, and the Lions have had him on the roster now for 2 seasons. Like, I'm not saying that he's a great player, obviously not, but like, there is also something to the fact that it's like, we can put him out there and maybe he's just not as big, not as fast, not as, hasn't played the snaps in order to be comfortable back there. But like, he's also the last guy in the room that you want to put in. And like, if that guy at least knows what you're doing, knows the terminology, and has played with the other guys in the unit, like, I prefer that to a rookie. So what I would do is I'm definitely drafting a rookie, because I don't know. I think every team in the NFL should draft at least one cornerback every year.
And probably one wide receiver, right?
Yeah. It's like they are the 2 position groups that you need the most bodies at on the roster. Yeah. And so like, depending on who's there at 28, like, I might also want a pretty decent corner.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I one thing to remember is we actually picked up Kindle Vildor off this couch like 2/3 of the way through a season a couple years ago. And I think he probably just belongs back on his couch. Like, I'm sure he's a great human being, but like, I just don't want him in my secondary. And I think I would rather take a look at the free agent market and see who was the 140th best out of 211 and see if I can get that person for the same price, or whatever, because he is 50 spots better than Vildor. And I think you can find somebody who is in the 100 to 130th like best grade range. You can find that on the open market pretty easily and pretty cheaply. There's no reason to dredge the bottom of the barrel. So that would be my argument to Dan and Brad of like, there are other people out there, and they've shown that they're willing to go out and get veteran, mid-tier dudes. They don't need to be. We've never gone out and gotten like the A+ rock star franchise guy, like, but we've gotten Alex Anzalone. He was a mid-tier dude, and he came in and played really well for us. We got Carlton Davis. He's a mid-tier dude. He came in and he's played pretty well for us. So I feel like this is another one of those opportunities, like Carlton Davis, like Anzalone, where we're going to find somebody on the market that is just not terrible.
And like, I'd be fine with that if it was like the guy that you're signing doesn't count against like any kind of compensatory formula. Because if you're saying like, not you, but if like the way the situation comes out is that like you re-sign Kendall Vildor, and because of that, your compensatory formula works out where you get a 7th round pick. I would rather have Kendall Vildor in a 7th round pick than the guy that you're just whoever the guy is.
Really?
Yeah, and so like
I absolutely wouldn't, because most of the time your 7th round picks don't end up working out anyway, and there's a reason why they're the 7th round pick. Is there were 300 people better than them. I would rather have a Alex Anzalone, mid-tier dude than some flyer that probably won't make the squad anyway.
Sure, and outside of like the first season that this regime has been in there, they haven't signed those people. So I mean,
we got Davis and
which they traded
Rakestraw last year, right?
And
I think that's what they'll do. They'll, whether it's a free agent or a trade, I think they're going to find that mid-tier dude and not have to bring back someone who is bottom 10% in his position group.
So sure, and like Kendall Vildor, I mean, no one is pinning like, oh, it's down to you, Kendall, in order to make the season work or not. He's a product of an attrition, that took out most of the room on and off all season. And I mean, like, if he's your 6th cornerback that you're carrying on your roster, I don't have a problem with it, because I don't know that there are guys that like the guy that you're saying, like if you're going to sign like an Alex Anzalone equivalent to the cornerback room, he is a starter. You are signing a starter. So like Kendall Vildor is not a starter. So he's not going to push Terry and Arnold or Amik or Ennis or Carlton Davis if he's back for starter snaps. And if you're telling me that I can get a guy on the team who has been there, and I can get, and in this scenario, I get like the worst compensatory draft pick that I could get, I would rather have that than effectively saying like I'm giving starter money to a guy who has no place to start next season.
Well, I'm not saying that it needs to be a starter money. I'm just saying, so like Kendall, so the 6th, there are 32 teams in the NFL, right? Yep. The 6th best cornerback of the worst team would be the 192nd best cornerback, right?
Sure.
He was 197. So like he's even worse than that. Like there has to be somebody that is better than that is available, that won't screw up our compensatory pick opportunities. And I think trading does not affect that compensatory pick. That is strictly, from what I understand, free agency, right? So, and maybe that's why they traded for guys like Carlton Davis, right? And they didn't sign them as free agents. So, but even then, I would take random 140th best cornerback instead of Kendall Vildor and a 350th or whatever overall pick.
So the Lions have been able to do that the entire time that he's been on the roster, especially this last offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still on the team. So, I mean, like, I think that they see value in him somewhere that is greater than the thing that you are describing, because otherwise they would have done that if that was available.
Yeah, there was somebody had said that Vildor is allegedly going with Glenn to the Jets,
which would make sense.
And I will wave goodbye as he flies to New York.
I'm not gonna like Kendall, I won't be terrified, but like he'll be the last guy in their cornerback room too.
Yeah.
But he's just following a coach who knows him. But like, that also then begs the question, like, why would Aaron Glenn have Kendall Vildor be the 6th cornerback in his room? Right?
Familiarity with the system, probably.
Right. So I mean, like, whether it's the Lions or the Jets now, like, if you just want a guy who knows what you're doing, and so like whether you're trading for a guy or signing a free agent or having a draft pick, they all have to learn that. He does. And like I think that's where his value is, regardless of how well he played. Like Khalil Dorsey's on the team to be a special teamer. I think Kendall Vilder's on the team because he knows the system.
Yeah.
So Emmanuel Mosley's not going to be on this roster. I would bet my house on it. Which, you know, if you guys want it, you can fucking have it at this point. Like it's just been awful around here.
We comes as is. maybe not on the frozen pipes. We'll see.
We'll see what happens. We might disagree on Iffy. I think we let Iffy walk.
I think I would keep him if he's cheap.
So he's going to have to be. He's going to be cheap because he's been hurt so much.
Yeah.
He
much like Davenport. Right. Sign him to some sort of minimum deal with incentive bonuses, because when he's been on the field and healthy, he's played okay.
Yeah.
He hasn't been like Kirby Joseph, amazing, like 91 grade. He was a 64.3. But he was only in 3 games. So if we can get him on a minimalist contract and incentivize the shit out of him, and if he can do it, winner, chicken dinner, right? So I would bring him back only under those circumstances.
So to me, I think that Iffy Melifonwu was a 3rd round pick in the Penei Sewell 2021 class, right? They've had an opportunity to re-sign him. They haven't done it. They are stretching him out to the last possible second. I just think that the fact that he's hurt so often is gonna be what is the deciding factor for whether or not they offer him a contract or not. Like I like him when he's healthy, but like he's only been healthy for like 12 games in 4 years.
Right.
You know, and so like I don't even know if I necessarily want to give I don't want to give Emmanuel Mosley a contract. You know, because for the exact same reasons that they don't want to give Iffy Melifonwu a contract. Is that he is at best the 3rd safety. And probably, I mean, like he had whatever it was, a hamstring, and then he was coming off of injured reserve. He fucking dislocated his finger like the day before they activated him, and they had to activate him and put him back because he hurt his finger. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, like this dude is like snake bit. Like, who did he piss off? Like, did he cross paths with a gypsy and like swear at their kids or something? And like the guy cursed his family. I mean, like, I don't know what it is about Iffy Melifonwu, but the dude is snake bit. And you know, it's a safety. I would rather have another 3rd round safety on a 4-year rookie deal than Iffy Melifonwu back on an incentive laden deal. You know, and there's just the Lions have the spots. Like the Lions have so many of their bases covered that like I think they can afford to let Iffy go, see what happens, take it all the way into the draft a dude, because outside of Branch and Joseph, like they just don't have any safeties, and like stock up on depth in there. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they drafted 2 safeties. Yeah, and just had depth. And if he comes back, hey, nobody signed me, nobody offered me a contract. Okay, well, we need a guy in a practice squad. You'd be a great practice squad elevation. Like, you know, like that's the kind of thing that I think is in his future. Michael Badgley, sorry, dude, we've got Jake Bates. You're done.
Yeah, he was only on the squad because he was injured, and I don't think they could cut him or something. I don't know, something along the lines with the injury.
He'll be in camp for camp battles. So now we have all these guys on something called street free agents. This means practice squad. This is our practice squad from last year. So Jake Fromm down through Eric Hallett were all on our practice squad last year. 11 of these guys have been signed to what's called futures contracts, which means that their cap hits don't hit this year's cap. They immediately get applied to next year's cap. So these guys who have signed futures deals are on the practice squad next year. That's a lock. So James Mitchell, our 4th tight end, he signed a futures contract to be on Carolina's practice squad. That seems like a downgrade. Best of luck to you, James. But what I think is interesting here is the guys on the practice squad that they did not extend futures contracts to. So Jamar Jefferson, big running back, not extended. Maurice Alexander, no futures contract. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's the third Tim Patrick, Allen Robinson. Of all of those guys, Donovan Peoples-Jones was the third of that group. Didn't get one. James Mitchell left before we could even say that we're not going to give one to you.
Yeah.
Juan Alexander, a pickup, during the Anzalone injury, not given a futures contract to come back on the practice squad. So these guys, I think it's interesting who they didn't re-sign. I don't care about the guys that they did re-sign, really. They're Detroit Lions, and those are the ones that are coming back. So neat, there's always a chance that some of these guys show back up, but this looks like they're kind of pruning the hedges. All right. Mike has no take. That's fine.
I mean, there's nothing else to say. They're practice squatters, and we need dudes on our practice squad. So they're not going to be expensive.
They did sign Ronnie Bell from San Francisco's practice squad. He went to Michigan, so I'm happy about that. Hooray. Welcome, Ronnie. Craig Reynolds, Shane Zielstra, Coyote Iwashika, Anthony Pittman, Miles Adams, they're all what are called restricted free agents, which means that the Lions can offer some sort of tender so that if they are...
I think they can match, right?
Right. This is what happened with Brock Wright last year.
Yeah.
Right. So Brock Wright was a restricted free agent. San Francisco wanted him. They negotiated a deal, and Detroit said, we'll take him at that price. And then the contract became the Detroit Lions contract for Brock Wright. All of these players are in the same spot, which means that they're all very likely to be back on the roster. And I don't know that there are teams out there that would negotiate for any of these guys like they did for Brock Wright. So I think that these 5 guys are a lock to be back on the roster, or I would be very surprised if they weren't. And then even to take that a step further, Connor Galvin, Michael Neese, Mitchell Agude, Trevor Nowatzki, Maurice Norris, who is already re-signed. So Maurice Norris is back on the roster. So Connor Galvin, Michael Neese, Mitchell Agude, Trevor Nowatzki are exclusive rights free agents, which means Detroit doesn't even need to allow other teams to negotiate with them. Like if the Seahawks want to negotiate with Trevor Nowatzki, Detroit can just be like, no.
Nah.
So no, those
thanks.
Guys are as likely to be back on the team as anyone else. So they're all coming back too. Like that's what I saw that.
Yeah. And those, again, just like the other ones, nobody on that list is egregiously bad that we're like, just under no circumstances do we not want them on the team. They're roster players. They're going to be cheap. We need depth in some of those areas, whether it's on the roster or the practice squad. I'm fine with pretty much all those guys. And to be honest, the one that I most want to make sure that we do is Miles Adams. He didn't get as many snaps. Like, he was only in 4 games. He only had, I think, 46 snaps. But he was at like a 75 grade, which, again, few snaps, but like he played pretty well while he was out there. So he's one of the guys that I'm really hoping that we bring back, just because our defensive line needs some depth, and he played pretty well. So
yeah. So I mean, if we take a look at the guys they signed to the practice squad, the exclusive rights, the restricted free agents, who they're likely to re-sign out of their unrestricted pool, they're really only losing about 10 players off this roster, and that's out of and then once you add a draft class, we're already at 85 players.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be this roster looks very much like what it's going to look like down to the practice squad next year. And I think what you do basically is you say I had my question read on CBS's show or whatever where they talk about it, so that's kind of fun. And I said, like, does Detroit have any kind of starter level opening on their roster? And like the only thing that the guy said was both guard spots. So what I took that to mean was that Zeitler either retires or leaves, and Glasgow is not is a starter quality player.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
he did not play starter quality, especially the last half of the season.
he sure did not. So Mahogany gets one of those spots, whichever one you want. And so, like, according to people, the only the cap will go up. The only quote unquote starter level position that the Lions have with no starter in it, effectively at that level, is one offensive guard. So seems like a relatively easy get, in the draft.
Well, and maybe we go into this more next week. But does Brad, and history says no, but does Brad F them picks? And be like, we don't have that kind of need, right? So we don't need volume anymore, right? Our floor was so low, we needed volume just to slowly inch our floor up. Now that we've got a pretty high floor, we don't need the volume. And you and I have talked about this in the past. Like, do we actually need 7 picks, or would we want to trade up for very specific dudes in very specific use cases, or trade those assets for a free agent, not like a Max Crosby or that kind of player. So history says no.
That's right.
But, history said no for the Rams until it said yes.
So everything that Brad Holmes has said in his time in Detroit has been the same thing, which is that we have a process, we're sticking to that process. So here's what I think the process is, having watched it now for 4 seasons. When it comes to this time of year, I think that Brad is going to primarily re-sign his guys, the guys that were on the roster. And they will make assessments as to, like, no, you're not going to be on, like Jonah Jackson, they let walk into free agency last year, right? And like there were a lot of Lions fans that was like, you cannot let Jonah Jackson walk. All right. They did. But that was one guy. And I don't know that there has been a Jonah Jackson level guy they've let walk when they could have re-signed him since. Right. And the only thing that I see that's different about Jonah Jackson is that they didn't draft him. And because he was not bad for them. He was pretty good. He was a little banged up from time to time, but
played like dog crap for LA though. So sure. I don't know if they saw something coming or what.
Probably, and so I don't think they want to go into free agency and sign someone at his number, like 14 million, 16 million, something like that.
Yep.
But they will go into free agency and sign someone like Kevin Zeitler or Emmanuel Mosley. They'll sign someone who has like an apparent drawback. Like right. Zeitler's 34, Emmanuel Mosley was hurt. Like somebody else might, who knows?
That's how you get him on the cheap. It's a scratch and dent shop, right?
Yeah. So I think that they'll have 1 or 2 of those guys come onto the roster who weren't here last year. And then he's going to position himself so that he can go into the draft with the most flexibility that he can have. So remember, we're going to get a comp pick for Aaron Glenn. I'm projecting that's the 102nd pick in the draft. So basically the last there's already 3rd round comp picks assigned. The ones the Lions get will be the bottom after all those ones already. And so that's the 102nd pick. So I think that they'll have that, which is great because they'll have one more pick. But I think he'll go into the draft with as much ammo as he can get to do the other thing that you said, which is like, will he trade up? We've seen that. Will he trade down? We've seen that too. So he'll move around in the draft, and to just what extent to get what players that they've tagged as guys that they like, their guys, they'll target those players and go after them. and there's a lot of history of Brad doing that, and so, but the biggest trade he's made is Zadarius Smith, who I've heard could be a cap casualty. I don't think that's likely because it only
I think we keep him
$1 million.
around. He was pretty effective for us too. He played well.
So I don't think that Brad is the kind of guy that's going to change his process.
Right.
Like, even though he comes from the Rams tree, Les Snead tree,
right?
Like, there's been no indication that he wants to wheel and deal the way that Les Snead does. So
yeah, like I said, the history says no, but you do wonder at some point, does he say, "Hey, Sheila"?
Well,
this
maybe.
is what I'm thinking. Right? Like, we have an opportunity to get this person that could be a game changer. It could be somebody that gets us over the hump. So I think it's possible, but I think it's unlikely. This is not something I would bet the house on. Frozen pipes or no.
Right. So I mean, I don't think that I can predict Brad Holmes.
Yeah.
Except to say that, like, I have not seen him do this. So I'm going, until he does this, I'm gonna say that he's not going to do it.
Right.
Because
you will be right until he finally does it, but you're gonna be right a whole bunch of times probably.
So I'm just gonna let observation kind of like guide me on this one.
Yeah.
So
the scientific method, right?
Yeah.
Observe and report.
So what are you trying to do?
Well, so I'm thinking maybe next week. It's going to be the week before the Super Bowl, so we're not even going to have Super Bowl result at that point. I'm thinking maybe we do a full first round. Drew's going to get a little bit excited here. I think we should do a full first round mock for all 32 teams, and then possibly follow that up with a 7-round Detroit only mock.
That's not only is it. Yeah, we'll just do that.
All right, let's do that. So
if you're listening, Hatters, next week is your episode, bro.
Yeah, we're going to dedicate this to you, buddy. So everybody that popped into chat, appreciate you guys, and ladies. Kathy was in there as well. It's always good. We have a good group that smart people, a lot of good insights, a lot of good thoughts. So appreciate you popping in and helping fill content and asking questions and kind of driving some of the show a little bit. So if you have any other Lions friends, tell them about us. It's a lot of fun to get more and more people watching and interacting. So do the like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, right?
Yeah, love it.
Awesome. Well, Drew, always fun to talk Lions. I wish we were, talking another Victory Tuesday, but we'll have some more in the fall.
Yeah. So absolutely.
All right, we'll see you, buddy. See y'all. Thanks, Joseph.